And that was, of course, facilitated by, living in Chicago and being in proximity. And
right.
I just didn't meet him in a restaurant or a specific venue. We would spend a lot of time at each other's homes,
right?
Just him and I, for many years doing magic, And of course, we went out to outside venues as well,
right?
Crandall's bar and restaurant, and a few other places that were.
Yeah, it's interesting when I read Marlo how much of a dedicated friend he was. Even in his books, I mean, he would continue to praise his friends like Carmen D'Amico.
Yep.
Art Altman was
Yep.
one that he continued to talk about far after he had passed away, and continued to celebrate what they contributed.
He was a very loyal person. When he was your friend, and it's really a function of him liking you. When he liked you and he considered you to be a friend, that was a little different than just interacting with him in magic.
Right.
That was a different ball game. And it was a treasure to have his friendship, because he did show it. He showed it quite a bit. And, it was fun, just like you have any friend too.
Right.
It was a lot of fun.
Now, I know the focus of this is Marlo, but you've been around him and some of his other friends, and there's a lot of mystique and interest in a friend of his named Carmen D'Amico. And you knew Carmen, right?
Oh, yes. I knew Carmen. Carmen was a real nice man, and Eddie was real good friends with him from when he was young. And Carmen used to get a big kick out of being with Marlo when Marlo interacted with other magicians, and he would just sit there and look at their face.
Right.
And he loved it.
Because he would destroy them.
Oh, he would just, and Carmen would go, yeah, all these guys are just waiting around here to see Marlo do a trick.
Right.
So he was a character, a little bit of a Damon Runyon character. But he did probably.
Now, for our younger listeners, including me, who's Damon Runyon?
You're not that old. You know who Damon Runyon was, no?
So let's change the subject. Anyway, so let's put it. So he would represent his friends and their contribution, and you were one of them. In fact, you had one item. You were the only one represented in advanced fingertip control.
Yeah, that's correct.
And so you had a peak item that was very devious, very clever, and he enjoyed that very much and
put it in his magazine.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. It was a nice honor. But Carmen, getting back to Carmen for just a moment, Carmen was an individual. I would say Carmen was a man that had a limited repertoire of effects. But those effects that he did, he mastered and did them very well. But he wasn't, he didn't have a big repertoire. He did 7, 8, 10, 15 tricks very well. That was it.
Yeah, when I was growing up, I lived on the East Coast. I lived in Philadelphia. And you know how much the East Coast guys loved Marlo. But one guy told me once that he believed that it was really Carmen D'Amico who was the mastermind behind all the great card magic that Marlo. What do you say to that?
Carmen could have never done that because he was on the golf course 90% of the time. Carmen couldn't wait to go home early from a meeting with the magician so he could get up early to go golfing.
Right.
He didn't stick around long.
So so you were around from the early 60s all the way through till he passed away in 91.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of magicians that came through and were around. And we know the obvious ones like Solomon and Simon and so who are some other guys that were around?
Well, he attracted some fellows like there was one fellow, he was a black magician, and I think he was more of a gambler, but he came around and he was doing a lot of interesting shuffles, and He was like a totally unknown person.
Mm.
I can't even remember his name, but then he was around for a couple of years, and then he faded into the woodwork.
Right.
So he would be he would often hold court. People would come in from out of town and want to see him.
Well, you were around when, say, Alton Sharp was around, the guy that wrote Expert Card Conjuring, and
put one of my tricks in his book.
Oh, that's right, the Magic Split.
Yeah,
right?
The Magic Split, right? And Al Sharp eventually, he was an attorney, and Al Sharp had a peripheral interest in magic. He liked magic a lot, and he was an educated guy, and he wrote the book with contributions.
Yeah.
And called Expert Card Conjuring.
Yeah.
And he eventually moved to California.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he moved to California.
Huh.
And we had guys around, in the round table of magicians in those days. We had Chick Shoki and Paul Stadelman. Harry Reiser would come. Myself, Dorney Dornfield, guy that did the backdrops for a lot of stage magic. And sometimes Jay Marshall. So we had a little group there on Saturdays. We met at Drake's the Mayor's Row, which is a restaurant in Chicago. So downtown Chicago. So.
And Marlo would hold court there.
Yeah, to a certain extent, he would be.
But he was open to other performers.
Oh yeah, he was very congenial.
But I hear all kinds of stuff growing up because of my associated with the Rocker Bomber and all, and I'd get rumors like, oh, he was really hard to sit with. He didn't like to be showed up or anything. So what was he like with other magicians that were coming that were very good? I mean, was he?
He was very congenial, and he was basically fairly reserved. He would see what he would analyze. If he didn't know you when you were a magician, he was just meeting. He would sort of look and see the kind of things that you do, and then he would fall into that level.
Right. So he would watch. He knew exactly what you liked, what you did.
Yeah, and he wanted to be sharing, but at the same time, even though at any moment he could lord over you and most people,
right,
and just come up with killer effects. He didn't go out of his way to do that to people. He was pretty fair-minded guy, and.
But every now and then.
Oh, well, if you're a real good boxer, every once in a while you throw a knockout punch.
Yeah, and he could knock him out, huh?
Well, I'll tell you, he was something.
Where do you think Marlo is?
But just to give you an idea how he was.
Yeah.
How he wasn't. He didn't always have to be the center of attention. So a lot of times a magician would come there, and I'd be with him. I'd always pick him up, and we would show up together. So he would say after a while, and I was, of course, a young man, and I was being respectful and quiet and watching and listening. And after a while, Marlo would say invariably, "Jimmy, do something for him, will you?" Because he was proud of me.
Right.
He gave me that feeling. He was proud of what I was doing. And he was, in fact, my true mentor, just like Rocker Bomber was for you.
Yeah. So this is kind of a trick question, but where do you put? I just love hearing this. Where do you put Marlo in the echelon of card magicians?
Well, for the type of magic that he did, certainly for his inventiveness and for his sheer knowledge and his sheer ability to create effects and refine effects and find the best methods to accomplish effects. He has to be number one. When I was younger, people used to say, "Well, you've been studying with Marlo. What is your rank? How high are you on the scale?" And I used to say, "Well, if I was 100th, there's a greater difference between the guy that's 99 and Marlo than there is between myself and the 99 guys ahead of me."
There I was at Magic Inc. with the 4 aces. getting ready to run through Marlo's bluff ace assembly, when in the door walked a man with one arm behind his back. He came up to me without missing a beat, said, "Kid, I know a few things about a deck of cards. I made my living with them." He said, "I'm going to show you an effect you've never seen before." I said, "Go for it." "First, bury those aces. Hide those aces so I can't see them." So I did. And he says, I want you to lose those aces in the most natural way you know how." He said, "No, the most natural way you know how." So I took the second ace and just dropped that on top. Fair as can be. He said, "Cut the cards." I did. Is that top card an ace? Nope. Is the bottom card? Nope. Third ace, right on top. Fair as can be. Cut those cards. Is that top card an ace? Nope. Bottom card? No. Last, fourth ace. Fair as can be. Gone. Cut those cards. Top card? Not an ace. Bottom card? The seven of diamonds. Not an ace. Says, now I'm going to cut to those cards. The hand was still behind the back. One-handed, deft touch. The first ace. Again, hand behind the back. One-handed, deft touch. Ace number 2. Couldn't believe it. Everything was square. I lost the aces. And yet, one hand behind the back, deft touch. Third ace. Third ace. Could he do it a fourth time? I mean, I understand the odds are pretty good that you can get to the other three, but one left. It could be near the top, near the bottom, somewhere in the middle. He came over, deft touch, one-handed, just like that. And I couldn't believe the outcome. He missed. He missed that ace. He said, "Don't worry, kid, I did it the hard way." I said, "No shit." "No," he says, "take the deck. Count 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 card for each pip on the card." And I tell you what, I decided, I knew that that was the card. It had to be. So I palmed it real fast. And believe it or not, without missing a beat, he came out with a yogi bird clutched in his fists and slammed the beak down. Luckily, I was spread out. I had a little window there. Boom, right through. It was lodged right, impaling that card on my hand. The yogi bird, the beak. I almost lost my arm with this, but all was well in Chicago. Thank you so much. Now we can thank Vernon for that basic story. I added a little Chicago style to it. And this is a Marlo handling of the cutting the aces, 1942. 1942. I guess the effect was making the rounds. But this is one of the cleanest ways to get into it. And check it out. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know. This is one of Jimmy Nuzzo's favorite effects from Marlo, and he asked me to do it special for you guys. So thanks, Jimmy, and thanks, folks out there. We'll talk soon. See you next week.